Welcome back to the show. Today we have Ken Dunn. He's the CEO and founder of GoRead.com. Ken, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kevin. I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back on the show, not only because we had a really good chat last time, but I think what you guys are doing at GoRead is so important. But maybe before we get into all of that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. I grew up in Eastern Canada, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it was in Halifax that I started in law enforcement in the beginning.
Okay, so what made you decide to go into law enforcement?
You know, I wish I had some amazing story to tell you, but the fact of the matter is I didn't even want to finish high school, and there was a police recruiter at my high school for a career day, and they convinced me to apply, and I got accepted into the military police without even finishing high school.
Oh, very cool. So I know you did quite a stint in the police force. Walk us through that career.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was just being in the right place at the right time, and not probably because I had not the greatest background. I was only a uniformed police officer for the first 6 months. Okay. 6 months after I got into law enforcement, I went on into an undercover drug project, and I literally was an undercover drug cop when I was 19 years old. And then from there, I went to a SWAT team for 3 years. It was during that period of my life when I was 23 that I met my wife. We started dating. 3 years later, I moved to Ottawa, Canada, and joined the Ottawa Police Service. I spent a couple months in uniform in the beginning, then it was right into major crime investigations. And I was part of homicide investigations and child sexual abuse and all kinds of really crazy stuff. And then by 28, I was interrogating major crime suspects, interrogating murder suspects and child abuse suspects. And I was the chief interrogator of the police department.
Interesting. So what made you kind of decide to leave the police force and actually start and found a company?
The most traumatic thing you could possibly imagine happened to me when I was a cop.
Okay.
I was literally, it was 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. My partner and I were only half awake. We were driving down a road together in a marked police car, and out of an alley, a guy came running at us with a shotgun.
Wow.
None of that is true.
Okay,
it sounds really cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
No, it was a traumatic incident, though. When I was 29, Julie told me I was about to become a dad.
Okay.
And I was, Kevin, at the time, I was dealing with really, really horrific crimes, like murders and child abuse and things. And I wasn't traumatized by it, but whenever a major crime would happen, my pager would go off. And wherever I was, I'd have to walk away from it. And I didn't want to raise kids and be at my son's Little League game and have to leave. I didn't want to be bringing this stuff home. I just needed to make a break for it. So I've always been adventurous, I guess. I walked away from a steady job without even knowing what I was going to do. But luckily, one of my best friends, convinced his dad to help me start a mortgage company when I was 29, and the rest is history.
No, sure. And walk me through that journey, because I think what you guys did with that is actually quite fascinating, and then it kind of led you into GoRead.com.
Yeah, so I found out I was going to become a dad, and I told my friend, who's the only guy I knew that was an entrepreneur, that I quit my job. And he said, I asked him for advice. I said, well, what should I do? And he said, well, when Dad got me into the insurance business, he made me read this book. And he handed me a book.
Okay.
The book was Og Mandino's book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. And it's an amazing book. Og Mandino's book has sold over 70 million copies.
Wow.
And so I read the book. I had never read a book before, and I pushed it back instantly, and I said, I don't read. And he said, read this book. It's going to have your answers in it. So I went home that night. It was a Friday night, and it was the first book I ever read cover to cover. I started reading it at about 7 o'clock at night. I was finished reading it at about 4 in the morning, and I ran back to my friend's office on Monday, and I said, man, I got to sell. They owned a major insurance company. I said, I realized reading this book that what Og Mandino described as the secrets and the techniques of the greatest salespeople in the world, it was the exact same stuff I learned in police interrogation.
Interesting.
I was actually a great salesperson. So I went to him and said, can I sell insurance? And he said, no, we've got a better idea. My dad's waiting to talk to you. And he pointed me down the hall to his dad's office. His dad is this like crotchety old 70-year-old man that I've always been scared to death of. I went into his office, and he made me a deal. It's changed my life. He said, at that time, back in 2000, in Canada, the insurance industry changed. So anybody that had a big insurance company with a big list of names, they could now sell other things to them. In this case,
Okay.
mortgages. So he helped me to start a mortgage company. We headquartered it in their office. He kept 70% of the company. I had 30%. And in 3 years, he taught me everything that he knew about building a business. And in 3 years, we funded 300 million in mortgages.
Wow.
And 3 years later, we sold the business for 30 million. And of course, I had 30% of that.
No, that's
So,
really great, man.
so yeah, it was unbelievable. And my wife and I made about $9 million in that experience. But it's interesting. Mr. Mantas, he told me two things. He said, if we're going to do this, I'll buy your portion under two circumstances. And I said, name it. He said, you have to go out and create as much revenue outside of the insurance clients as we get from them. And I did that. Over half of our revenue came from leads that I got from real estate agents. People were buying houses. We did the mortgages.
Sure.
The second thing, and this is the thing that changed my life forever, Kevin. He said, I'm going to give you a book to read every week.
Okay,
and you have to read a book. Now, remember, I had never read a book before. Right. I'd only read the first book a few days earlier. And he said, if you don't keep up with this and read a book every single week, then the deal is off.
Interesting.
So
go ahead.
I did it. No, I was just going to say, I literally fell in love with reading. I read a book a week, and we sold that company 3 years later, and Julie and I made $9 million.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. So walk me through why you decided to found GoRead.com, and what exactly is it?
Well, when I sold that mortgage business, it was really funny because another thing Mr. Manta told me to do is every day when I go into work in the morning to train the salespeople and tell them stories. And so I got in the habit of telling crazy police stories every day.
Sure.
And the sales guys, they were constantly telling me, Ken, you should write a book about this. You should write a book about this. They kept saying it over and over again. But the better the company did, the more excited I got about teaching salespeople.
Interesting.
And so by the time I sold the company, I was convinced that I was going to become a professional speaker. I was going to write and publish a book, and I was going to travel around the world doing keynote speeches and training people. And so the first thing I had to do was write a book. And Kevin, it was freaking painful. It was the most painful thing I've ever done in my life. It took me 18 months. I probably started again 15 times. And finally, I get it done, and I go to the internet looking for a publisher. I didn't know anything about the publishing business. And I found a publisher who promised me it would become a bestseller, that I would sell thousands of copies. And essentially, she had me at hello. She also knew that I had $9 million.
I see.
And essentially, she ended up charging me $80,000 to rewrite the book, to publish the book, to market the book, and to print 10,000 copies. And in spite of all that, she published the book with 280 grammar and spelling errors in it.
Wow.
The whole freaking thing failed. I only sold 8 copies of it. It was a disaster. And I was so angry about it that I had to fix it. And so I went out and I learned how to publish books, or how to write a book. I had a mentor who actually taught me how to write an entire book in 30 days.
Wow.
And never writing more than 10 minutes a day. And so I've written 5 books now.
Okay.
I've got them around me here somewhere in my office. They're around here somewhere. There it is right there. This is my best book. It's called The Greatest Prospector in the World, and you probably see that backwards. But I only published this 2 years ago. It's a fiction story. It's like Og Mandino's book, and it's already sold 127,000 copies.
Wow, congrats, man. That's really great.
Oh, thanks, brother. But so I republished that first book, but before I know it, I'm traveling all over the world and I'm speaking. And every time I'd speak, I'd sell books in the back of the room.
Sure.
I'd go in the back of the room. My staff would sell them, and I'd just sit there and sign them. And Kevin, every freaking time I did this, it was bizarre. I'd always have people come up to me, and they'd reach out their hand and they'd introduce themselves as authors. So it was always happening. Hi, I'm Ken. I'm an author too. I'm like, okay, great. What do I say?
Sure. Yeah.
And so I was trying to make conversation with them. So I'd always ask the same question. I would say, oh, that's great. Congratulations. How's your sales going? And Kevin, every time I asked that question, it was like I ripped their hearts out. I don't remember one time that the answer wasn't, it's not going well. I can't figure it out. Nobody's buying my books. And so naively at first, I thought, well, maybe they just don't know how to sell them. I should start a publishing company and help people learn how to sell their own books.
Okay.
And so first I started a publishing company in 2008 called Next Century Publishing. And we started self-publishing books and helping authors. And I started teaching a lot of skills around how do you sell books, a lot of really innovative stuff, but the authors wouldn't do it.
Interesting.
And I found that what I realized is authors don't want to be marketers.
Yeah.
They don't want to learn. They just want to write and sell books, right? And so I had to figure out a better way to do that. And so when I started looking at, okay, so what's an author really looking for? An author just wants to connect with readers. An author wants to build a following of readers who will buy the books. So I started really thinking deeply about how can I make that happen. And at the same time, I'm growing this pretty significant following on social media. And I'm really understanding digital marketing. And it dawned on me one day. I said, what if I build a hybrid social media community like Facebook, same quality, same stack, but what's the biggest problem that social media companies have today? If you look at Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, what's the problem that they have? It's they don't know how to make money.
Yeah.
Twitter has never been profitable. They've spent billions of dollars. They've never made money. Yeah. So if I'm going to build a social media website, what can I do to make sure it's profitable? And then I don't know why I came up with the idea, but I said, well, what if it actually sold stuff? Okay. See, the reason Twitter is never going to make money is that it has been marketed as a free service.
Yep,
totally. And millions of people join because it's free. They're not going to start spending money there. Yep. But what if, when every single person joined the social network, they also realized they would start spending money there. And in joining, they're agreeing to spend money there. Case in point, we have a massive growing social media community for readers. Readers join, they build libraries of the books they've read, they connect with other readers, they follow their favorite authors, and they discover their next book because all the books are there, they're reviewed. And when they discover a book they want, they just click buy now, and one click, they own the book.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to like what happens with music, right? Is like you get recommended reading and like you just keep going, right? Because it takes a lot of effort to find new music or new books, right? Like, so what you guys are doing with that, you're basically solving that problem for people.
It's really amazing. But, you know, so there were two more pieces to this.
Okay.
When that started happening, it also answered my dilemma about authors. We built the technology here. We have 40 full-time programmers right now, where every time a reader joins, we ask them what are their favorite reading genres, and then on the very next page, we recommend authors for them to follow.
Interesting.
And we incentivize them to follow the authors. We recommend a list of 10 of them, and 99% of the readers that join, they click the select all button and follow all 10. The minute they do that, the readers are put on the author's email list, and the readers are put on the author's fan list. And then we teach the authors how to write articles to attract attention, how to build their followings, and show them how to sell more books. And every author that uses our platform sells 10 times more books than they did before they joined us. And it's just created this really cool matching service. It's like Match.com for readers and authors.
Sure. No, that's really cool, man. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the platform for authors. Like, how do they, like, if I'm an author, I come to GoRead.com, what do I do?
So here's what really happened. When I was struggling trying to figure out how to help authors, I'm a data guy, right? I'm always looking at numbers and doing research. In my research, I found that there are about 700,000 to 800,000 people every year that self-publish their books, that pay to have their books published. Just like this book, in spite of the fact it sold 100,000 copies and it's in every bookstore in America, this is self-published. I paid for it myself.
Interesting. Okay.
But here's the thing. Every year, about, let's say 800,000, it's right around there, self-published. They spend on average $6,000 to $7,000 between editing and proofreading and printing books. But Kevin, last year, 90% of them only sold 100 books. So essentially what that means is they're losing about $4,000 every time they publish a book. So I started taking a closer look at what they were spending money on. And I realized that 80% of authors spend around $3,000 to build websites, to plug in CRMs, to plug in email lists, to plug in shopping carts, and then they don't know what to do with it.
Sure.
So I went to my programmers, and we have this author page in GoRead.com. It's like a business page on Facebook. And I said, I want to turn that into a website for a new author. So if somebody's just publishing their book, all they do is they pay $40 a month for a subscription, and we upgrade the page, and it does everything a website does. You can publish articles, videos, you've got a shopping cart, you can do anything you want. And we actually take about 20% of the subscription revenue and 5% of all the ad revenue, and we put it in a pool that we give to the authors that write articles.
Interesting.
So 90% of the authors who use our system, they pay $40 a month, but they earn $500 a month.
Interesting. Okay.
So think about that. On an annual basis, they're earning $6,000. They're completely eliminating all of the publishing expenses. We have now made publishing a book a profitable experience for 800,000 people per year.
Wow, that's really great, man. I think it's great, and like, I know kind of the pain of that an author goes through. Like, I wrote a tech book a number of years ago, and like, it is a lot of work, right?
Oh,
and so
man.
just having like a platform to kind of bridge that gap, right, is huge, right? So
Absolutely.
you guys also have a children's literacy foundation, which I think is super important. I think very few people would disagree with that. But what exactly are you guys doing with children's literacy?
So again, on a layover in an airport, I went down another rabbit hole, and I started studying children's literacy statistics.
Okay.
Because I realized, looking back now, 15 years after I read that first book, I've read a book every single week, and I realized the impact that those books have had on my life. I own a company today that has, first of all, we raised over $9 million from investors.
Congrats, man. That's great.
We have 70 employees. We're doing, right now at the time of our conversation, we're doing just over $500,000 a month in revenue, but it's growing by 20% per month. It's beautiful to see. But I didn't even graduate from high school. Everything about running this business, I learned reading books. Books have had a tremendous impact on my life. So when I looked at the statistics, Kevin, it broke my heart. Did you know that in America, 12% of kids who graduate can't read?
Wow.
It freaks me out. I can't comprehend that.
How do you graduate without being able to read?
They're being pushed through the system,
and
it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Now, here's what's even worse. 18% of kids never graduate. So the U.S. government says it's actually about 30 million Americans today cannot read a single paragraph.
Wow. That's
30 million. And for years, people have been trying to figure out how to fix this. But I realized that if we were going to build the largest community in the world of readers and authors, bringing them together, let's do something to help kids. So we started the Go Read Children's Literacy Foundation. Now our company is being called the Tom's Shoes of the book business.
Interesting.
Because we're selling thousands of books a month. And every book that is bought on our website, we match it and give a book to a kid.
That's very cool.
And we have what we call Go Read Days, where we partner with schools, and we literally send authors to schools, and our charity buys the books from the author and then gives them to the kids. So we're trying to inspire kids that way. And the foundation also operates a bursary fund. So once a year, any organization in the world that's a grassroots organization that's mandate is to help eliminate illiteracy in kids, we give those companies money to help them.
Okay, very cool. No, I think that's really great what you're doing, because I think, well, I find like I never considered myself really a strong reader kind of growing up. But I think even just the last maybe few years, like I'm 35 now, just so you have some context. And, I read throughout my 20s kind of sporadically, but now that I'm in my 30s, I find like I'm reading a lot more. I usually read on my phone, to be fair, at night, or a tablet, but
sure.
And I usually kind of, it's funny because I usually have 2 or 3 books kind of on the go. One's usually like a band biography of some band that I've, grown up listening to or whatever. And then one's usually like kind of like a business type category. But like I find just having a few books in a different category on the go helps me kind of read, maybe 4 or 5 plus nights a week, even if it's only for like a half hour, right?
Totally,
and so I think I think as you get older, I think people just you're right. Like I've learned a ton just reading about something that I wasn't even trained in, right?
And it's not complicated reading either, Kevin. Here's an example. This is the book I'm reading right now. I bought it last week in an airport, and I'm about a quarter of the way through it. Okay. It's called Shoe Dog. It's Phil Knight's biography, his memoir on how he built Nike.
Sure.
And it's freaking really interesting. He tells all the dirty secrets in this book. But as I read through this book, I'm getting new ideas for my business.
Totally.
I'm getting new thoughts. I'm getting new ideas about my health. And that's what reading is all about. It's just giving you a better way to learn through experience.
Well, and the other thing too, I think Amazon does it with Audible, and I don't know if the Kindle Reader app does, because I usually use the Google Play Books app to read sometimes, but some of those apps will actually read the book to you, right? Do you guys do some of that yet?
Yeah, we're actually adding ebooks to our platform in September, and we're adding audio books in December. And in January of next year, we're going to be the first company in the world that sells all three in a bundle: audiobook, ebook, and physical book at the price of the physical book.
Interesting.
So you buy the physical book, we're going to give you the audiobook and the ebook for free.
Interesting. And the thing that I like, why I mention that is I think if you're not necessarily a strong reader, but you want to get better, you can have the book like read to you while you're like following along.
Right.
Which I think is interesting, right? And I think could potentially really help a lot of people out, especially even kids just growing up, right? Where when I was going to school, you didn't really have that luxury. Like nobody read the book to you, or like digitally read the book to you, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
So we're sadly coming to kind of the end of the show, but where can people get more information about you and Go Read?
Really simple. GoRead.com. Right on the homepage, there's links to learn more about the author program, our charity. If you're just interested in reading, join our community. It's all right there.
Perfect, Ken. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time of your day to be on the show again, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
You too, my friend. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.